All right. Welcome, family and friends, brothers and sisters, enemies, whoever you are. God bless you.
Enemy.
Friends, God bless you guys wherever you are. Welcome to another episode. We have some special guests coming on today with us. Prayerfully, the other one will be able to join us very soon.
Yes, I just got a message from Father Sam. Actually, he's saying he's coming.
Oh, okay, good. So Father Sam from the African Orthodox Church. We have the wonderful brother, and I can't even express how great the depth of his wisdom and knowledge is. The Father Will Kane. God bless you, sir.
Bishop, thank
Of
you so
course,
much.
my brother in arms, my battle buddy. We Father Spiro. God bless you. Thank you for being here today.
Uh, Father Will, I want you to confirm that I am the white dude from the Distracting Church.
And you're not even white, but yeah, that certainly was what some of the brothers were excited about.
That is funny. He said, "I got a message today saying, hey, aren't you the white dude from Disrupting Church?" I said, "Yeah, we making you famous, man."
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello. Well, God bless everybody. God bless you all. Welcome to the show. Today we have another episode of Disrupting Church for you. Here discussing topics, subjects that are somewhat taboo that people don't like to address, that plague the church world, and that cause division, that cause strife. So we decided to have a platform where we could discuss these things openly and in the public. So anybody is at all times welcome to send me a message, or anyone who you see on the screen. Send us a message. I'll make sure that we get you a link and you can join the conversation. I never want anyone to think that we're talking about them behind their back, not giving them an opportunity to rebut, to disagree, whatever the case may be. So, if you don't like something we say about your particular church, your jurisdiction, or something hits home and you feel like, you know what, I would like to share on that, I would like to discuss that with them and share my point of view, then you are always welcome, brothers and sisters, family and friends. Even if you don't like us, that's okay. Just tell us you don't like us to our face. Don't do it behind our back. Tell us up front. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with the issues. And again, hopefully we can come to a common understanding, common knowledge, and a place of unity where even if we do disagree, we can walk away in brotherly love without having to discredit each other's ministries, talk down about the persons, because again, all people are flawed. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Point blank, period. And so if we can't treat each other as brothers and sisters, then how can we say that we love God? We lie to ourselves. So if we can do this in a public forum, God bless you guys. We have some people that are already joining us. Apostle Ross. We have Father Alpheus. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us. If you want to join, shoot me a message. If not, then chime in the comments. But let's get started on part 2 of this thing we're talking about, somewhat of tradition and how tradition has developed and how it plays its role in the different churches, whether they be mainstream, whether they be independent or autocephalous, as they call it. Some call it the independent sacramental movement. Myself, I call myself a continuing believer. Our church is a little bit more of what we call continuing. And so let's talk about these things again, because I know there's some people already who are dead set against, hey, God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us. There are some people who are dead set against the word tradition at all means, at all costs, and they don't understand. I think it's lack of understanding of what tradition is. And so I had a friend of mine, I was sharing with him, he said something about tradition, and I said, here's the thing. If there's a choice between the revelation and tradition, I will always choose revelation, right? I would always choose to have God speak to me, reveal something to me, and let eat from his table directly. All of us, I'm sure, as Christians would love for that to be the case at all times. I said, but what do you do when you're trying to preserve revelation that has already come? That's what we call tradition. It is the preservation of what has already been revealed. It does not always mean that it is just a tradition of man, because there are things that have been established by God, and we pass them on through the tradition of the church. And so I get it. There is this concept that it's called traditionalism, And I think that we might need to discuss that a little bit and the difference between tradition itself and traditionalism, where there are people who have legalistic viewpoints on things and so on and so forth. But let's break this down. Let's get into this a little bit more. Father Sparrow looks like he wants to jump out the gate running. So
No, I am very happy you tried to keep me out of the warpath today.
yes, sir.
But just for some of our guests that were not here or they did not watch the previous episode, what we were saying is that tradition is rich and it comes from all parts of the world. Either it's from Assyria, Egypt, Greece, Rome, Ethiopia, or any other place, and we are all, it's our own riches.
Yes.
None of these churches can say this is exclusively mine and you cannot have it or you cannot share it. So one of the privileges we have as small communions is the ability to be part of them all.
Yeah.
Without the restrictions the mainstream will impose on us to follow a very specific tradition. And we also put the vestments in that tradition.
Indeed.
So indeed, that tradition belongs to the whole church, and we are blessed as small communions to be able to reach and find inspiration to the different schools of the past. So that was the story in our last episode.
Indeed, it was. And Father Will, would you speak to that? The well of, there's a well there that we have.
Most definitely, Bishop. And again, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. You guys know how much I love and respect you both. There is a difference between holy tradition and just tradition. And I think that we have to give a line of demarcation. As you just got through stating, there are things that the church has passed down from the very beginning that we have embraced as being holy tradition. There are sacramentals, not sacraments, but rather sacramentals that the church has embraced and has received down through generations. Nothing necessarily that was initially written. Some of those sacramentals were defined by the church fathers later. We have, Tertullian and others who speak of even the signing of the cross. That is a sacramental. And it's a tradition that was passed down by the church. But and we deem it as a holy tradition. But then there are other traditions that we have to remind ourselves of what the Lord Jesus himself said. He said that the traditions of men it is very possible that they can make the word of God of none effect. And we can get caught up so much in tradition that we negate and completely look over the spirit of the law and not understanding, getting so traditional and so legalistic as it pertains to, our position and the way we see things and can't nobody do it like us, or can't nobody wear what we wear because this is ours. And as Father Spiro was saying, the church, for 1,000 years, we spoke with one voice. For 1,000 years, we believed the same things. And although there might have been certain disagreements among us, there certainly was a unity and a loyalty and a commitment that the church shared. And I believe that now, as everybody professes to be, part of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. That's the new craze word. That's the new thing that we're, that we want to make sure that we sound like we're ancient faith, to making sure we sound like we're the continuing church, to make sure that we sound like, we're Orthodox. But, if we are truly the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, then we should be far more ecumenical. We should be far more embracive of our other brothers, and other formations, other traditions, other churches, and not be so quick to be elitist. I think that's one of the things, and I'm not one, Father Spiro's hammer is far more heavier than mine.
Sure, man.
but one of the things that it is true that we have seen within the tradition, within the historical church, is specifically within those of oftentimes within the Orthodox Church, and that is the elitism and the entitlement that comes with thinking that they're the only ones that can do certain things, and nobody else is even saved half the time. Nobody else is valid. Nobody else, is the true church. And I'm not saying that all Orthodox churches or
clergy,
clergy believe that or embrace that. That's certainly not the truth. But the overall ethos, I believe, oftentimes of these churches is one of exclusivity. That it's just us. It's us four and no more. You're not. You can't do that. You can't wear that. And one of the things that Father Spiro mentioned, I believe it was yesterday's conversation, and that is that the garments, as we talk about vestments, because that is one of the issues that was raised. That was the whole issue that was raised initially, that you were wearing vestments that you were not a part of that church, and so therefore, consequently, you were out of order because you were wearing the wrong vestments. Now, one could argue, and let's play the devil's advocate for a moment. One could argue that there is something to be said about vesting in the proper vestments of your tradition or of the church that you were formed in, because of the same reason why it's illegal for us to dress up like police officers, because we're representing something that we're really not, and so we have to be careful that we certainly aren't doing that. But I think that type of analogy would be far more comparable and far more compatible if you were dressing as an officer or as a position or as an office that you were not. Case in point, if you were a deacon or a priest, and all of a sudden you found it upon yourself to don the vestments of a bishop, well, you would be totally out of order, and you would be totally in the wrong, because you are falsifying who you are. You are not a bishop, so therefore you do not have the right to wear certain vestments that are allocated towards the bishopric. Same thing to be said of the priesthood. That same thing to be said of the diaconate. They all specifically, regardless of the tradition, regardless of the church that you're in, they all specifically have certain vestments that are for those offices. And so my personal feeling is that yes, if I am, if by all intents and purposes, if I'm orthodox in orthopraxy, if I'm orthodox in also my theology and in my formation, then I should be able to reach from any of those churches that are orthodox and be able to glean and appreciate, like has been stated, the richness, the absolute richness that exists between all of these churches, and even with being Anglo-Catholic and a part of the Convergence movement, I don't really pride myself on vesting investments that are outside of my tradition, although I probably could, and it wouldn't be anything wrong with that. But for the purpose of not confusing possibly those who are watching or following our ministry, but a head. But a head covering. We're not. I'm reminded of what the Lord Jesus said, talking to the Pharisees. He said, "You swallow camels, and you choke on gnats. You choke on flies, and you swallow whole camels whole." So we have to wonder what in the world motivates people. It's one thing if it's false doctrine, or if it's heresy, or if there's certain things that the church has always said that we must stand and defend. But a head covering, it just makes me really think that you have too much time on your hands. You're really bored, because there's far more weightier things than we can be addressing and talking about when it comes to holy tradition, and when it even comes about just tradition itself.
Absolutely. Father Spiro, any follow-up?
Yes, just to remind Father Will, when it comes to the Anglican tradition, you can wear whatever you like.
Yeah. Honestly, and
Absolutely,
that's
yes.
absolutely right, Father Spiro. I mean, and you can serve in jeans and in flip flops. You can serve it.
Hmm.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that people put on up under their vestments, and even with vestments, that changes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There's some jurisdictions of the Anglican Church that are incredibly Anglo-Catholic, so they'll dress far more Catholic. But then there are other sides of the Anglican tradition that are far more English, and their vestments will certainly depict that of the lords, the English lords. So yeah, there is a lot of variances within the church, and the fact and the reality is that we shouldn't be trying to divide each other. We shouldn't be trying to find more reasons why we should be divided. One of the things that we pride ourselves as being a part of the continuing sacramental movement, or whatever, however you want to name or call yourself. One of the things that we pride ourselves on being people that seek the unity of the church, that we desire to become what Jesus prayed for in John 17. And that's not going to happen if we're grasping at straws.
Yeah, we're biting each other's heads off, for the sake of saying that your head doesn't look like mine, so I'm going to come, that type of deal.
Yeah.
And
my argument, Father Will, during the last episode, I don't know if you saw it all. My argument is that in the Anglican Church, as you explained, we have a variety of traditions, and kind of it's an own personal choice, or sometimes it's a parish choice or a diocese. It depends. And when I was in the Church of England, it never crossed my mind to ask somebody because I was in a low church. I had jeans, to be honest with you, and the color. That's all I had.
Yeah.
I never crossed my mind, not even once, to ask an Anglo-Catholic parish nearby, why on earth do you dress in a way that, appears to be Roman? It never crossed my mind, because I explained that to me, I understand that it means a lot to them, the way they worship. And I am the last person in the world to go and question that and say, why do you worship this way and you don't worship my way? Also, and I explain, at hospitals or some other denominations, ministers of purely evangelical churches are wearing the alb in the stole. Again, it never crossed my mind to tell them, this is not yours, take it off.
Right.
So that's my point.
Well,
and
and
I said,
I think. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
Yes. I'm just putting together what I said last week.
I mean, and there are two sides to that coin. I mean, because let's face it. I mean, we do feel some type of way when we feel or we see that there are, Protestants or Pentecostals who don vestments, sacramental vestments, but do not carry sacramental theology. They do not embrace, liturgical and the Eucharistic community. They're not a part of really what it is to be sacramental. Yes, they wear those garments as if they have a right to them, and that's where I would argue. There are some boundaries. There are some perimeters that I personally feel, because yes, it's okay that you wear those vestments. Yes, it's okay if you decide that you're going to wear those vestments, but if you're going to put on certain vestments, then you need to embrace certain theology. There should be a certain belief system that you have, because if you don't believe in real presence and you're wearing an alb and a chasuble, what you doing all that for? For what?
Right. That's my thing. Yeah, I agree. That's the point.
If it's nothing more than grape juice and crackers, then keep your T-shirt and jeans on. I mean, but if we're going to that extent, then mind you, we can still celebrate in T-shirt and jeans, even as sacramental people. But the point being is that those things are reserved for certain reasons and for certain situations. I in terms of vestments. But here's the thing, even with vestments, for example, the case in point with the mitre is not only worn by the bishop.
No, sir.
People think that it is only worn by the bishop, but an abbot can certainly wear and has been given a mitre as well as a crozier oftentimes. So those are episcopal appointments that yet an abbot can have and has been given oftentimes throughout church history. So there are certain variances. I mean, the Dominic, what the deacon wears. Do you know that oftentimes bishops will also don the Dominic and use
the Dalmatic? Yes,
the Dalmatic in their celebration because every bishop knows that he will forever be a deacon underneath, and he is the servant of all. Those are certain things that
can be done.
That certainly can be done. And bishops, for those of you who know about episcopal authority and episcopal dispensation, bishops can get away with stuff that sometimes no one else can get away with.
It's just because they for the office. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like for me, it's more so a matter of, look, we understand that everybody has a tradition that they follow, whether they call it tradition or not. They have one. Whether it's the tradition of wearing a suit, whether it's the tradition of wearing jeans and a T-shirt, that's still tradition. It is a tradition in a sense because you do it regularly without any question, or even you just do it because this is what we do. This is how we do things. That is the definition of tradition. How
Bishop,
you do things.
Bishop, I agree absolutely. Even with those churches who scream that they're non-traditionalists, they're non-denominationalists, but you go in there and there is a certain ethos that those churches have, a certain tradition that those churches carry. You come in there, you're going to get your Starbucks first thing from the foyer.
Starbucks donut.
Yeah, the donuts. They're going to have refreshments there. Those are traditions. There's certain things that you're going to expect to receive from those type of places that you come into, and it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them right.
It's just what they do.
That's what they do,
and they're entitled to that. And I think that's the case because, like, even let's look at the Anglican Communion. Actually, Anglicanism is very much, the word they use is via media, but in a sense, it is. They have understanding that we can embrace many different cultural aspects, many different traditional aspects, and apply them all because they belong to the church at large, not necessarily to one particular group or another. On top of that, if you look at how many other groups that are connected with Anglicanism outside of the church, outside of England itself, look at, like, I have ministers. I have bishops in India, and if you look at how they dress, they're a cross between Anglicanism and the Syriac tradition. Why? Because both of them match the spirituality that they're practicing. That's their practice. They're coming from the lineage of St. Thomas, so to speak. They have these ideas and thought processes. Their spirituality is based on this reality. And so that is reflective in their vestments. Because I like to, I'm going to get to some of these, some of these comments too, because they're coming in now. So he says, since we're a part of a church, isn't all traditions in some way ours as well? I agree. Yes, they are. And that's kind of the idea of this conversation. He says, as an interesting perspective to consider, I'm laughing at the notion of the fight over monastic head covering from a tradition that was never even held by the original complainant. Mm-hmm. He was part of the Ethiopians, then left the Oriental Orthodox to join the Eastern Orthodox OCA, who follow a Russian tradition. That, however, is for a lesser consideration. Like I said, there is no American tradition, guys. Like, this is one of the things that is very interesting to me. There is no American Orthodox tradition because most of the American Orthodox churches were actually Byzantine in some way, shape, or form, whether it was Greek or it was Russian. And then after that, it was kind of all of these small independent jurisdictions and archdioceses of ethnic groups.
Yep.
So in America, we don't have something that is called our specific thing. We can take
there is no real specific. There is really no literal Orthodox Church of America. because of the fact that America is a melting pot. It is a conglomerate. There's, like you said, there's so many different races and so many different ethnicities that it is, and whatever ethos that they're propagating or attempting to push, it is a Russian influence. It is, and it has always been in many cases in those situations, ethnic exclusivity. If you're not the same ethnicity of those groups, it's very hard for you to even fellowship and become a part of those churches, because they're operated and ran a lot by ethnic
Absolutely.
ethnic influences.
Archbishop, I want that last comment that stood up for 2 or 3 seconds. That one.
Sure.
Thank you.
He's talking about one of the comments because
Yes, I
he's
understand.
talking about Archbishop Trevor Green's comment. So this is his response to that, and I get that. You're saying that he's not church hopping. He just went from one tradition to another tradition, and he didn't try to bring from the old tradition with him to the new one. I get that. Nobody's. I'm not making that claim. In fact,
I'm losing it. To leave the Ethiopian church to go to the Soviet one. I've heard things in my life, but
if it wasn't the Ethiopian church, it was Coptic or something like that.
Backwards to me, the Ethiopian and the Coptic Church existed way long before the Russian Church. But
yes, correct.
That's
Okay.
That's
So he
another
says,
argument.
the ICAB was planted by St. Carlos Duarte Costa of Brazil after he broke from the Church of Rome over various matters. When he formed the ICAB, the man sued him in the Brazilian courts, calling for them not to look like them. The Brazilians demanded that the ICAB change their attire and not look like the Roman Catholics. The result was the adaptation of a gray cassock. So what do we do about such situation? How do we consider such a matter? And then Archbishop Avi says, you know what would be easier? Just doing your own thing. And then he says, oh, wait. But because of colonization and confusion, here we have these things happening. So there are many who have said, just create your own vestments. I have a problem with that. And here's why. Because it doesn't matter what we wear, somebody's going to have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. I could go and design a whole new cassock. In fact, I have a couple ideas for one that look like it looked like something out of Star Wars and come across. It's hot.
Let me.
Huh? What's that?
Yeah, that's funny. I will answer to Archbishop Green there.
Yes.
When I was in the Greek Orthodox Church, I will find the documents that I will show you. That's very funny. There was an argument between OCA and a small jurisdiction, an old calendar jurisdiction, if you know that. It's a zealots of the Orthodox Church. So they were going out, OCA, and telling everybody they're not canonical. So they got a lawsuit on their head. How dare you tell us we are not canonical? They settle outside the court, and we get a letter from the Assembly of the Canonical Bishops and blah, blah, blah in America that says, don't call anybody uncanonical anymore. Say we're not in communion. So that's what I mean. That's what we do with this situation. That is a court's decision. We have the same laws in Greece. That is a court's decision not to wear the same kind of vestments. However, we don't have that law in the United States, and thankfully so.
Absolutely.
We cannot follow that law because, as I said, vestments are the mirrors of a specific spirituality that we associate with. Let's go like this. I and Father Will are priests. Archbishop Wayne is a bishop. What if, of course, decide that just because the Catholics use the term bishop and priest, you cannot use it because you're not the same with them? See what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Those things make no sense. So we shouldn't use the word priest then. We shouldn't use the word bishop. We shouldn't wear a cassock. We shouldn't wear anything because somebody else is using it and they are older than us.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Let me say this, if I can, gentlemen, in giving my comment on and my commentary on this, is that Archbishop Green made a very interesting point. Is that they changed the garment from I guess what would be a black to a gray garment.
Gray garment.
But that was the cassock. That wasn't necessarily all of vestments. And when our International House of Bishops went to go see His Holiness Pope Francis in Rome, and for that ecumenical meeting and lunch, we were asked to come. Our bishops were asked. There was specific dress that the Vatican requested that we dress in, that they dress in as bishops. They were asked to wear black cassocks along with a burgundy sash or a burgundy
the belt, yeah,
fuchsia,
mm-hmm.
so that they did not look like bishops or cardinals that were there presently in Rome and at the Vatican, and so that they would not be confused as to where they were. Churches outside of Rome and not just our communion, but others that have visited that are outside of the Roman Church. That is how they were asked to dress as well in their jurisdiction and in their house. Mm-hmm. If you're in someone's house, then
exactly.
Then sure, you certainly will want to make sure that you respect their wishes and that you go by their standard and by what it is that they are asking you to do. But if we're not in someone's house and I don't have to necessarily go by your rules or by your regulations, I don't think that we should hold people's feet to the fire about trivial things. I'm far more worried about doctrine, orthodox doctrine, what people believe.
Yes, thank you.
Than what people are wearing. Do you know that there are heretics that are wearing vestments? And it doesn't matter what you put on. A pig is a pig, regardless of what you dress it in. And heretic is a heretic, regardless of what you put on them, whether they got a collar on or not. Arius, I'm sure, dressed just like a priest, but he's still a heretic. And so, we have to make sure that we're chasing after right teaching, right believing. What it almost reminds me of what the Lord Jesus said when he said that it's not what goes into a man's mouth that defiles him, but it's what comes out. It's not what we put on that makes us the men and the sacred ministers that we are. It's what and how we believe and our orthopraxy, what we practice.
Absolutely. Now, let me interject here a little bit because we have some very interesting comments. The comments are lit up today. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us. And again, I will make this statement. If anyone wants to join us live,
please,
and refute anything we're saying. Oh, let me take the comment down. I'm gonna make myself big so y'all can see what I'm saying. I'm gonna fix it. Hold on. Let me get it right. Okay. I want y'all to hear what I'm saying. Okay. If anyone disagrees or agrees, you are welcome to come and join us live. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, to come on and speak your piece. We give you that opportunity. You can do that now or at any time. Come live and discuss what you have to say. You are welcome. There's no condemnation here. There's no judgment. We're not here to attack anyone. Contrary to what is being said, we're not attacking tradition. If you would like to state your claim, come and state your claim. By all means, you will have the floor, okay? So you don't have to just go and go through the comments back and forth. Ask for the link, shoot me a message, and I will send it to you, okay? So nobody has to be confused about that. All right, so now that we're back, right? Let's deal with this. So he says, I'm not sure what is expected from this conversation. You all are attacking tradition, just unproductive and futile. So if we're attacking tradition, tell me where and how.
Yeah, that's not true. We're not attacking tradition. If anything, we've outlined that there is holy tradition and then there are traditions that are man-made. And we have to assess whether or not all traditions that are man-made are valuable and healthy to the growth and the development of the church. You know,
Yes, sir.
I call that apostolic tradition and
Yeah.
church tradition.
yeah.
That's how we make the Father
Hey,
Sam.
rest in peace, Father
Father
Sam. How you
Sam.
doing?
All right. So now that we have a real valid priest on the line, that's right.
Yes, sir. So I want before you jump in, I want to go through some of these comments, all right? Because they're coming in hot and heavy. And so one of the things it says, my concerns were never about whether you or not you can wear certain vestments, etc. It has to do with intent, which I'm still not convinced on. And that's okay. If someone wants to know the intent, again, they can always ask the question, and myself or anyone else here will, by all means, explain to you our intent on the reason why we're doing what we're doing and the purposes of them and behind them. So I don't have a problem expressing that. Again, I'm not here. Listen, I've been called a troublemaker, and so I decided that I might as well own up to the name, live up to it, and be good at it. That's why we have this show called The Church. If I'm a troublemaker, then I'm gonna do it for real. Let's do it right, and let's stir up the pot. You know why? Because like my brother said, God bless him. He said, listen, listening as a true outsider, because he doesn't consider himself orthodox or following an ancient in that sense, but a believer in Christ. Although this is so interesting, I do have a question. Is this not division? Yes, it is. Is this not similar to what the Apostle Paul spoke to in Corinthians about? Again, this is from an outsider. And I'd like to answer that. Yeah, this is division. People are happy with creating lines of demarcation to say that we're better than you are. That's just point blank, period. Or to say you're wrong and we're right. If that wasn't the case, then these lines wouldn't be there. Because let's look at scripture. There was one time a line was drawn in the sand. Who drew the line?
Jesus.
Jesus.
Who was on the other side of that line?
The crowd.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
That's the only line that exists. And that's the only line that we are endeavoring to cross over, is to get from the opposite side of where Christ is to on his side, period. That is the only line that matters in the kingdom of God. So all of this stuff of not your this and you can't do this and what I like, for me to express my intent, I do so willfully, not because I owe anyone anything. I owe no man anything but to love them. None of us here do. Not one person on this conversation has a debt outside of love. Now, if you're telling me that by me doing what I'm doing is unloving to you, let's have that conversation. If you're telling me that me doing that means that I'm a heretic, I am teaching false doctrine, and I am far from the kingdom of God, let's have that conversation. Until that can be said, what is happening here is that there are a whole lot of gnats that are being swallowed, or excuse me, camels that are being swallowed, and gnats. What is it? Yeah, you swallow a camel and strain in a gnat.
Yep.
All this other little stuff that goes on inside of some of these churches. Inside. Well, that doesn't matter because we're in the church. I don't understand the hypocrisy of that statement. All I'm saying is be honest, be open. We're not here to attack tradition. I'm talking about if we're looking at the church from the standpoint of the apostles, did they all do exactly the same thing? No, even Peter said Paul's writings are hard to understand. Teachings are being misconstrued by many people. Nevertheless, listen to what he got to say. And they were always, Paul was rebuking Peter for all. So let's get out of this idea that any particular tradition just has it all, that any one particular group is right all of the time. Because what ends up happening is they start sweeping dirt under the rug and won't tell anybody that. They keep all of their secrets inside, but then the world starts to find out about these things from the outside, and they start turning off the lights because they don't want nobody to see how messy the house is. Let's not do that. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not act like God is just that stuck up and arrogant. Stop. I'm sorry. Call me whatever you want to call me. Say I'm illegitimate and illicit, blah, blah, blah. That's whatever. It is what it is. I know the lives that I know my life has been given up for the sake of others. I know the giving that I do for others and giving to others. I know the lengths at which I have suffered great loss to support and help others. So if people want to talk about what I got on my head and not want to talk about what we're actually doing, you can miss me with that foolishness.
Bishop,
Okay, let me pick on Father Sam because he was late. So because
Get him.
sir, you are in the African Orthodox Church, yet I see a Russian cross there. Why are you wearing something? Why are you wearing something that isn't yours? Why are you
Well, let
wearing
me tell
something?
I was going to wear this, but I didn't want Archbishop to rebuke me because I'm not a bishop. It's gold cross. Or I guess I could have worn my
Yeah.
well, I have one for every occasion.
There you go.
Yeah, yes, but people might think you're a Russian with that cross.
Well, yeah, this is one of my favorites. This one was given to me at my ordination
Yes.
by Father
I know.
Moses. Yes. Yeah, I'm glad to be on. Thank you, Archbishop, and to my dear brother, Father Spiro, and Father Will. Thank God for letting this young whippersnapper priest to come on. I'm new to Orthodoxy. I'm new to the priesthood. My natural default is going to be right now. It's going to be it's tradition, but in my opinion, what reigns supreme in tradition, and that's the biblical canon. I see it as the top in tradition. It's part of tradition. It's not at odds with tradition. So I naturally fall back to it. And I want to read something real quick. Mark 9, 38 through verse 38 through 40.
Slow, Father. Some of
Mark
us are old. Chapter 9.
Yeah, make sure you're reading 1611 King James.
Hold on.
Just kidding.
We got
That's
somebody
tradition,
we got somebody that want to join us. So y'all do that.
Just kidding.
Keep going. Read that, sir.
Yes, 38, 39, and 40. And I want you to notice that this is the head of the church speaking. This is our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ, the one who commissioned the original 12. So I don't think we can get any more ancient than we are right here. Now, this is what he said. Verse 38. And John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name. I want you to notice this. And he followeth not us, and we forbade him because he does not follow us.
This is the lectionary reading for the day. Matter of fact, yeah.
Come on now. See, this is what Jesus said. But Jesus said, forbid him not, for there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is what?
It's for us.
Case closed. The master said, you are not to say to another person because, they're not a part of our group, but they're doing the work of God in the name of the head of the church. Jesus said, leave them alone.
Yeah.
And what is so what is a blasphemy against the Holy Spirit here, Father Sam? Do you see any connection with that? With the words of the Lord?
What's that again?
Yes. I'm talking about the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. Do you see any connection?
Yeah, attributing you're saying attributing the works of God to the devil.
Exactly.
The works of the Holy Spirit to the devil. Yes.
So exactly. So we're going back to what you just read to us.
Archbishop, you have to stop with this. There's too many coming in, and you know me. I'm ODH. I got issues. I need to address everything that's coming down the pike. So
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So let's quickly resolve the issue that Father Spiro was saying. The fact that there are people who are potentially committing blasphemy against the Holy Spirit by calling that which is God of the devil, or calling that which is of God as illicit or invalid. Those are the issues at point. And what Father Sam just got through saying, or Father Ephraim, depending on who he is to you, is that you have to understand that the Lord Jesus shut it all down. He said, if they are not against us, if they are doing what we're doing and they're doing it in my name, let them be. Let them alone. Why are you
Absolutely.
Now pull up these comments, Bishop. Let's go. Let's run them. Let's run them.
Well, we ready. We ready.
All right. I don't even know how to pronounce your name, Your Grace, but I obviously assume you are certainly a bishop in the Orthodox Church.
Actually, no, he's a priest. If I'm not mistaken, he just has the picture of, I think, his bishop.
Oh, okay. Fathers, we must respect the manners of each jurisdiction as it is understood. That's true.
Not a problem.
I agree.
You're absolutely right, Father. We do not contend that. We're not speaking against that. If anything, that's what we just got through stating, that we have to respect each other's jurisdictions and each other's traditions. But it's one thing for me to respect your tradition in your house. Again, there's certain things that I do in my house that everybody doesn't do in their house. And for a case in point, when you come into my house, you got to take your shoes off, because I've got hardwood floors, and there's certain things in my, I like to keep a certain cleanliness about my house. I might come into your house and that's not the custom. I'm not going to take my shoes off in your house if that's not your custom, if you don't want me to take my shoes off.
Right.
So if I'm going to say Orthodox Christians do not dispute each other like this. Your whole narrative is counter-Orthodox and not supportive of Orthodox. See, again, that's
on
the problem.
Contrary. On the contrary.
Exactly. And that's the problem. Oftentimes, whether it's the Orthodox Church or the Roman Church or even the Anglican Church, we have to be careful how we couch ourselves and pivot ourselves. This is beneath the Orthodox Church. We as Orthodox don't do this, or we as Catholics don't do this, or we as this particular church, we don't do this because this is beneath us. These are conversations that need to happen in the Orthodox Church. Actually, a long time ago. These are issues that have been swept under the carpet. There's been elitism and racism and
ethnopietism and all of it.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things have existed strongly within many facets of the historical church, and now we truly believe, it is our sincerest desire and belief, that God is breaking down some of that. That He's abolishing some of those divisions and some of those elite ideologies.
Yes.
Because the reality is that the church, the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, is ours. It's not just yours. It belongs to all of us.
But no, you can't tell them that, because they don't believe that. And in fact, and again, because they'll say Orthodox don't do that amongst each other. I know for a fact that that's the issue that Archbishop Efthymios dealt with. 100% canonical Orthodox bishop was met with nothing but hate and disdain from other jurisdictions because he was organizing an actual American church who would not follow one particular tradition. Each church would have been under America, been able to intermingle amongst one another. And he was made an enemy. This is before any other quote unquote controversial issues arose of him being married or whatever else. They try to discredit him for getting married. He had been retired from ministry. He wasn't even active at that point. Never ordained anybody after that. Never did anything. He was completely retired. And so they try to discredit anything that happened the first 66 years of his life and the ministry that was done. But what ends up happening is they will refute and ignore the fact that there are letters that he wrote and that was written between him and other archbishops in Russia and whatever the case may be that document the actual events. So we have to stop acting like this stuff doesn't happen. Stop acting like our stuff don't stink.
Right.
Let's not do that. Listen, you can say it is like people, they'll accuse us of being counter-Orthodox or saying that we're not Orthodox because we're thinking like that. No, I'm deciding to be honest with myself. I'm deciding to be honest with what I see and not try to act like there's an elite group of people who can do no wrong, who have never done each other wrong. Look at the stuff between Cyril and, like, listen, if we want to go across history, let's stop acting like there wasn't a slap that was heard around the world from St. Nicholas. Orthodox do fight. So let's not do that. And that's what Archbishop said. He said, have you read church history? They've done far worse than this. Take a look at the behavior of those who didn't agree with the council. And Father, his name is Cases Amdi. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm gonna bring you on in a moment, sir. I want to address this one. He said, you all look very traditional. Isn't tradition always a substitute for kingdom principle, resulting in superstition?
No.
This couldn't be farther from the truth.
No.
I'm gonna let one of y'all talk. This couldn't be farther from the truth.
What?
Okay, Father Sam, what can we say on that? What can we say on that?
You look. I don't even know where to start. I mean, it makes, first of all, as I said earlier, scripture is a part of tradition. So when people, I think people confuse I said that word, actual tradition with man-made tradition. Tradition that goes together with practices of the church. Yeah. So, they confuse it when Jesus said, don't follow the traditions of men. They confuse that with when Paul said, don't follow the traditions of men. They forget that Paul also said, follow the traditions as I have handed them down to you. Just like read 1 Corinthians 15. 1 Corinthians 15 is a part of the tradition. He's handed down the gospel message. He's detailed what the gospel message is. So that is a part of tradition. So we have to make a difference between actual tradition that we should follow versus man-made tradition.
Absolutely.
So
I'm gonna add Father. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't want to mess it up. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself in a minute. I'm just gonna add him now. Y'all continue the conversation. And if you could, Father.
Yes, Father Will, go ahead.
I just wanted to simply say that as we're talking about tradition, there was once a time where there was this girl or young woman who was cooking with her mother, and her mother sliced off both sides of the ham before she put it in the pot to cook. And her daughter asked her, Mama, why do you slice off both sides of the ham? She says, well, baby, that's the way Grandma did it. Let's go ask Grandma. And so we went and they went and asked Grandma, why did you slice off both sides of the ham before you put it in the pot? And she said, well, sweetheart, great grandma used to do it that way. Let's go ask great grandma. She's still with us. And so they asked great grandma, 3-4 generations of tradition. They went to great grandma and said, great grandma, why do we cut off the ham on both sides of the pot? They were expecting some deep, some mystical, some real deep meaning why they cut it off both sides. And she said, well, sweetheart, the only reason why I cut them off is because it couldn't fit in the pan.
Right.
Great grandma used to cut them off on both sides because it couldn't fit in the pan. But now we're cutting them off. Regardless, the pans have gotten bigger, the technology has gotten better, but we'll keep on following tradition that is not necessarily effective. Right. We have to be willing to admit that there are some traditions that I'm not talking about apostolic or holy tradition, but cultural traditions. There are some cultural traditions. There's some ethnic traditions. There's some just geographical traditions that are no longer conducive to effective ministry, and we have to be honest and take a look at that.
All right, now I'm going to give the floor to the Father, please, sir. Welcome. God bless you. Again, I want to be very, very clear. I have no enemies. You are not an enemy here. You are going to have the floor. We will do everything we can as men of God to be respectful to one another. I pray that we can continue that. You are welcome to. Again, if I'm understanding properly, you're here to disagree, and so you will have the opportunity to please first introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of history, and then by all means, jump into the conversation. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you, Father.
all fathers, everyone present here, eminences. I want to just say that I'm here. I'm a priest of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, and I find it important for me to at least make a comment here, to be present.
Indeed.
Because in certain aspects, regardless of what we might disagree on, we are brothers to the extent that we are seeking out righteousness. And if that is what we're seeking after, then we should share a space. The differences that go along with that can come along in that space, because righteousness is the path that we're on, and that's the objective that we're looking for, and we're all looking to achieve. The ways in which we get there, and some of the things that might cause us to stumble on that path. I don't mind all of that being in the same space, but that's the space we're in.
Absolutely.
So that being said,
excuse me, Father, where are you watching us from? Where are you watching us from?
I'm in New Jersey, Newark,
Okay.
New Jersey. Yeah, I'm in New Jersey.
Nice.
I'm the priest in charge of St. Michael Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church in Inglewood, New Jersey.
Beautiful.
And I'm also the director of ecumenical relations to the Archdiocese of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church in the Northeast region.
Beautiful.
Great.
So both those things being fanciful in the way that sounds, I'm basically just a servant of the church. So, but I feel it's important to make a comment. I don't know how long this is going to be up. I can't be on a long time, but I want to make a comment because, and I appreciate being led on, Father Daniel, for letting me on, Bishop Daniel for letting me on, and to be able to give my opinion. I think the perspective I wanted to offer was that we are all, like I said, after the same objective, which is a righteous path. And that righteous path, if that's that we are after that, has a substance. It has substance. If we're talking about the righteous path that Christ speaks about, if the Father speaks that we speak about, there's only one path. There isn't two or three paths. So if we're on that righteous path, then it has an origin, right? And if it has an origin, it has a distance, and it has an end game. It has a place where we're all trying to get to, right? I think we all agree on that. And like in any path, if we use path as the metaphor, right? There's going to be, rules for the road and ways to identify this substance along the way, so that we will find ourselves weak at one point, confused at others. We could always look at the sign or look at the marker on the side of the road and remind us, okay, I see where I am now. There's always something there to keep us focused so we can identify where we are if we happen to get lost or feel like we might be lost. If someone decides that they want to change the signage, okay, change the signage. But I didn't know you changed it. All of us are on the same path, so that you changed the sign. When I would look at the sign, I was expecting the sign, because my instructions say this: we'll have the same instructions, we're all on the same road, we'll have the same map, we'll have the same direction, we'll have the same goal, we're all coming from the same origin. But somebody decided right over here to change the sign over here. So I'm like, okay, well, I think we should keep going because that's not on the map. Well, that was the turn. But somebody changed the sign. It's a metaphor, of course. Somebody changed the sign. So my perspective is that if somebody's going to change the sign, make sure that you let everybody else know, so that we all can understand that that's what that means, and that's what the sign means. Because I've already have a predetermination in regards to what that sign means. I already from the instructions that the forefathers gave and what we've already known and what we've expected. Again, those things that I'm expecting that sign to say right at that moment, it could be the thing that was changed to. It's not that it changed that's the issue. It's that I didn't know. and that I didn't know, I could not relate to the change. So we're talking about identification, specifics. We're talking about how we are all relevant in regards to this path that we're on. Everybody's relevant here. So there is no distinction between the traditions of the Russian church or the Greek church or the Ethiopian church or the Coptic church or the OCA church or the African Orthodox church. There's no distinction. You can wear any robe you want. If you want to wear, I got this cross from, I think this came from, what this cross was given to be a gift from somebody from the Serbian church. I can wear it. I have a headpiece on and no one else does. Because as a priest in public, I have to, in the Ethiopian tradition, I have to have a head covering in public. Or when I'm in the presence, even if someone comes to my house, I have to hold on and I'll put like a scoofy on or something. But again, you can do that if you want, or not. If I want to wear any kind of garment from any place or any tradition, if we're talking about vesture, why not? Sometimes I wear a Coptic motai. Sometimes I have an actual gift given to me at my ordination, which is the Eastern Orthodox motai, which doesn't have the bib on the back. It just just clips at the neck. Ethiopian church and the Coptic church, we have a bib along that goes all to have, a quarter of the back. If you look in the back, it's a quarter of the back is covered with the motai. You put it on and it goes all the way down the front. But I can wear the Russian one. It was a gift. It's no problem.
See, Father.
Well, if I can just conclude. Let me just conclude my perspective, if you don't mind. That's why I came to offer this perspective. And I don't think anyone disagrees with my perspective so far. It's a very simple perspective. And this perspective is agreeable because it doesn't change anything, and it's not attacking tradition, or nor is it in dispute of it. Tradition is fine. We can share it. We can share robes. We can share vesture. We can share these things. I don't think anybody's disputing that. I've given Ethiopian cross to Indian priests, and a hand cross, which we always carry when we always hold the Ethiopian church. Always have a hand cross.
I wrote one.
I can share these things with people, but I'll conclude with this, and then my Father, if you don't mind. There's certain things, however, that we have to be cognizant of. For example, how this whole thing started with the headpiece, with the hood that was formed by Bishop Daniel, and I think that's where it began. The specifics of that is that particular garment, for what I saw when I first saw it, when everybody else who know me saw it, we were like, oh, well, I didn't know he was a monk. I just assumed. I didn't even bother. No sarcasm. I didn't know he was a monk. And then somebody said, oh, he's not a monk. I said, no, he has to be a monk. It was just because that's, again, that roadmap I said. That's the only thing I've ever known. I've ever seen that headgear worn like that. I get that if it was a Syrian cassock, then you want to wear it, fine. But a Syrian monkhood, that's very, 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 very specific. So the point I'm saying is you can wear that too. If you want to wear the Syrian monk, could wear it. But if you're a monk, it doesn't have to be Syrian, you have to be Syrian. But if you're going to wear it to say, I've decided to take a sacrifice, as you talked about your sacrifices. If you're going to take a sacrifice of celibacy and monkhood, and in that, you're going to wear a tradition on your head to say to the world and to my members, that I'm a monk. And you need to understand that I'm a monk. Then go ahead and put it on. What's to say? I don't have no life. I live a monk life. So I've decided that I want to make that presentation as an Orthodox monk, and I'm going to put that headpiece on. And so when you see me, whether in Syria or in Newark or in Irvington or anywhere you go, anybody who knows the Orthodox tradition is going to know that this man with this headpiece on, I am a monk. I'm a priest and I'm a monk. So that's my perspective. All of us have to be on the same page. It's okay to wear the different traditions as long as we all understand that when we wear these traditions, we all represent the same cause and the same purpose, along the same road, along the same path. We're not trying to skirt the tradition. We're wearing the tradition as it was understood.
Understood. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, one second here. My dear Father, because I used to wear that too, and I am married, allow me to share my experience just briefly, like you did, on the issue. I had a professor at school, at seminary. He will literally dress like a clown. And what do I mean is his tie his suit, his shirt, his pants, and his socks did not match. I mean, he would combine all kind of crazy colors right there. And we never understood why a fashionable, modern man would like to dress like that. Wasn't that enough? He will have a pin here in Chinese with a Chinese character. So I found the courage one day and I asked him, Dr. Hill, why do you dress like this? It looks strange. He said, well, if I don't make a point, if I don't trigger the curiosity for others to ask me, they will never do. I reach more people out this way. I preach Christ to people this way than if I'm dressed casually like everybody else. Where I'm going with this, every garment, and every piece of vestment carries a specific spirituality, and it's a mark of something.
Yes.
I agree 100% with you that this is the mark of, in the Oriental, East Syriac, Indian, and I don't know about Ethiopia, forgive me about that, if they still wear that.
Yeah, we still do.
Yes, the Eskimo. It is a
Yes.
mark of a monk. However, it is also the wisdom of the desert. It is also a sign for people that here we teach ascesis. Here we practice ascesis. Either you're single or you are not single. Now, had the Archbishop gone out, Bishop Daniels, and said, I am an East Syriac or a Coptic bishop, I will justify anybody who will call him a liar, because she's none. She's not that. However, because every piece we wear can mean something, that is a point. Talking about myself, let Bishop Daniel talk about himself. It's a point. Other people will ask, why do you have that? What does it mean? It is given to monks, but what it means is not exclusively for monks. And that is my point to your notes and to your opinion.
Yes, but Father, I follow you, Father, but let's bear in mind that I think one of the things that got lost when the whole thing took off was that there seems to be an attack on him, and
Yes.
it was not an attack on him. I didn't
I
perceive.
would like to address that. I would like to address that as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to address that. And I will tell you this. I say it was an attack on me because it was, because this is not the first time. This is not the only instance.
Okay.
This has been something that is ongoing for the last, I could probably tell you, close to 5 years. That there have been numerous occasions where I have been the subject specifically of scrutiny, of whatever the case may be, because we have, I say because, but in light of not joining a particular church, because the offer was made. It has been made many times. I'm live, son. Go that way. Go back upstairs. My kid. Every time without fail. And so I have been on multiple occasions been, I say for lack of a better word, the victim of the very same type of behavior. Where and it was an accusation against me because the idea was presented that I'm playing church, and that the true church is available if you want it. The second part of that is, again, I don't care how you disagree. If you go out to the streets and to the world, women and children, for the most part, unless you are really a low down, dirty guy, you don't mess with women and children. My wife has, if you want to prove the point to say I'm not married or I'm married, say I'm married. Don't share pictures of my wife. Nobody would like, if I disagree with them, to go to their profile take a picture of your wife, and because I disagree with something you said or did, make her part of the conversation by putting her picture up on the internet. That's what happened. That's why I said it was about me. Again, this is not the first time. I have been under attack by many priests because we have decided not to join their particular jurisdictions. While we were quote unquote courting, I was the best thing since sliced bread. They couldn't say a bad thing about me, but when they heard my decision was to not join their jurisdiction, then I became public enemy number one. So I'm sorry you're hearing about this way, but
I'm sorry.
That is the case. I have, again, you can go through my timeline. I don't share pictures of other people. I don't talk about other people's churches. I may talk about issues that come up and subjects. I'll discuss those subjects specifically, and I'll do my best not to name names. You know, when I start naming names, when my name is mentioned, when my picture is posted and my wife and everything else starts to be. So now I'm going to address who is doing this. Now we're going to talk about the issue that is beyond just me putting on the headdress. So one, if you're talking about we're all brothers, then this idea that I'm playing church first is an attack. The second idea that the church is available as if I'm not part of the church is another attack. That's why I say it is an attack against me from this particular individual. And it has been that way for many years. Now, many people won't know about that because I don't broadcast that. Because I don't go out on the internet and talk about how people are talking about me and spreading my name around and trying to defame me. I don't do that. Why? Because I have actual ministry. I have people to care for. I have souls that I'm responsible for. I don't have time to do that type of stuff. So I'm doing my best to stay to myself in my closet, and people come and bother me. So this is only a reaction. This is and I say a reaction, this is an opportunity for me to get to, for lack of a better word, defend myself. I have gotten some wise counsel that told me I shouldn't. And at the same time, I feel like I need to, because this is how, I know I'm not the only one being treated like this. Because you know why? You're looking at men who are in other jurisdictions, not in what we would call quote unquote mainstream or canonical jurisdictions, because of the way they were treated by people in those jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Now, if you want us to just ignore those people and ignore their behaviors, because it's the one true church, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I follow you, and I again, that's why I have been following it on Facebook here and there, and some conversations offline about the subject. And when I was notified that you were having a talk today, I moved some things around so that I could possibly get involved here and offer at least my perspective. I don't have the answer, but I offer my perspective. I don't have any objection to those who are seeking after the righteous path and looking to be united with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in this way, Jesus Christ in this way.
Amen.
And I don't think that that's intended by anybody that, as you say, attacked you. I don't think attack was the intention. And again, I'm not speaking for them. That's my perspective. And my perspective, I don't think it's an attack. I think I can understand why it seems like it and feels like it. It may even be interpreted as an attack. I can get that. But in the heart of it, I don't think it is an attack. It's not an attack. I know some of the fathers that you've interacted with, and I know them. They're very humble men, and their intentions are strictly in an expression of love for what they understand as the Orthodox Church and its canonicity. There's an abiding love that's engaging and that is engaged to that. But that's hard to measure when words and actions are sort of saying the opposite. But to get for the specific aspect of this talk that you have here right now, you don't have to defend yourself, Bishop. You don't have to do that. It really, if you forgive me, it really says the opposite. It says that maybe they're right. Maybe I need to join that church or something. So it kind of comes across like that, because I have been attacked within my own jurisdiction for this or that, and that's an interpretation. Again, it's an interpretation. I'm just using it to parallel the circumstances to make a point. But I respected that attack because that's what's necessary sometimes between fathers. We don't dispute that I don't walk outside that space and dispute what happened in that space. Then that says, well, then I guess I am outside that space because I'm disputing the matter as if I'm outside of it, not as if I'm in it. Like this whole forum seems to be. It seems to be that this forum is operating as a disputation of that which is happening over here, not a disputation of that which is happening within.
Father.
For example, let me just, if I could just say this, when the apostles had their first council, when Peter and Paul had their disagreement, they met in council. And Paul was very concerned with Peter with his love for the Jewish Christians more so than the Greek Christians, and we know all of that. What happened with that? And it was a serious charge. Paul raised a serious charge, and it became they had a council to discuss it. And they came up with some canon to direct the church, to guide the church. Again, that's that rule along the road. They came up with something to guide the church in the event of weakness, in the event of failure. There's something that came up to help guide the church. But this was a disputation within the church. It wasn't something that was happening outside the church versus something that's inside the church, or two different groups competing against an issue. This seems to come across as two competing groups disputing against an issue. And that's why I'm saying you don't have to really have this for what you're doing. Just do it if that's what you feel you need to do. Is what I'm trying to say.
I understand that.
Father Sam.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a quick comment. What I have as a new priest, I have a problem with what I see is hypocrisy. I know some things, and I know some people that were involved in that conversation who look just like us, except for Father Spiro, that behind the scenes seem to be pushing an agenda. I won't say this person's name, but we all know his name. And he's not a part of any of us that are here. And he, out of his own mouth, have discouraged me from joining not only the Vagantes and the French group, but he said stay away from the Oriental Orthodox. He said stay away from the Ethiopian. He said stay away from all of these people because they are not the place to be. But yet this same person will reach out to you, Father, and others to try to, quote unquote, use you to attack. But his motive is not pure. I know this person. I know him and I know his motive. I don't know his heart, but I've had experiences with him and conversations with him. So that is my problem. My problem is that he's being hypocritical and he is being slick and sly, trying to be. And he's trying to do things behind the scenes to try to push an agenda.
See,
I saw the conversations. I saw the post.
That's why I don't go into this type of stuff. I'm not here to really put any particular person on blast. As you stated, we're looking at, you said it looked like two competing groups. And I can explain to you why. Because we have been repeatedly told that we're not in the church. So we honestly aren't even looked at as brothers to begin with. That's just to start off with. So how can I operate? How can we come together from within the same context and not look like we're two fighting parties? If we're not, they basically tell us you're not welcome to the table. That's how we're viewed. We're viewed as if there is no presence of God, that there is nothing in our lives, and you cannot, you're not equal with us. You either come be part of us or you have nothing to say. So I have no other place to express what is happening except for outside of what you call the inside, because they have created an inside which does not include all Christians, including out of their own mouth, like Father Ephraim just said, the Ethiopians, the Coptics, any other group outside of this particular church is uncanonical, and this is the one true. I'm just telling you what was told to me and what is constantly and consistently said to me on a regular basis. Go ahead, Father Will. I'm sorry.
I just want to say one quick thing, gentlemen. Number one, Father, I just want to say that I'm so thankful that you joined our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very humbled by your presence with us. And number two, I am a lover of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Studied a lot of it, and I want to know if the Lord might speak to your heart and let me get that cross.
You one behind me here?
the one you have in your hand, man.
The one in your hand, sir.
I have one for you. I'm gonna hold one for you.
Bless you. You know, but even as it pertains to what you said, you did raise some merit. I mean, it kind of is along the same lines of what I was stating as being, you know, dressing like a police officer. Sometimes we have to be careful that even though we might be able to have certain liberties, it might be interpreted as you know, improper or disrespectful. But again, you know, it'd be different if there was a blatant disuse of vestments that were outside of my jurisdiction or outside of who it was in my office. But you know, even with the you know, these churches, and it's not an issue of us against them. All of these men that are here, we come from different jurisdictions. We come from different communions. So it's not as if we're siding up on any in particular person or any in particular communion or church. But one thing must be addressed, and that is that, you know, who are we to say that this church or that church, that the Ethiopian church or that the you know, African Orthodox Church or any other church is not canonical, and you need to come over here to us because after all, we're far better than anybody else. That Father, that is the type of spirit that must be assassinated. It must be killed and uprooted, because regardless of how long and how ancient our churches are, or how the date, and mind you, Ethiopia is one of the oldest out of all of these churches. Matter of fact, probably one of the oldest that could stand and give far more
yes, sir,
credence of supremacy and dominancy, because the gospel was first shared in Africa. We know that history. We understand the history of the Ethiopian church, and anybody who would speak against it, and it would be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you've studied any church history, then you know that church has antiquity, and y'all have an 800-year-old Bible.
Right.
Lord Jesus, y'all's Bible alone is older than most of these churches. So, you know, but even then, the Ethiopian church, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is not. It has never been, in my understanding, it has never been one to sit in the seat of judgment or condescension and look at others as less than them. That has never been your ethos, and I don't believe it ever will be, because that's not the heart of the church nor your leaders. And I'm not, again, I don't know the specifics of who or who's trying to get at my brother. And the fact that he's my brother, I'm not going to let anybody gang at him. I'm going to defend him because of the relationship that we have. We have a relationship, and you know, I think that has to happen between all of us. That relationships have to be built. We have to get beyond our denominational and our communal lines, although we embrace them, although we're proud of where we serve and where we are, and we're thankful for where we are. But you're my brother, you know. Yes. We're one body. We serve the same Lord, and we should not, as I stated before earlier in this conversation, we should not be swallowing camels while we're choking on gnats.
Absolutely. And that's why I announced it. That was wonderful words, and I appreciate that. And we are brothers, and we have to bear this in mind. Some of the problems that are in place is not our fault. It's not in Eminence's fault. It's not of our fault. We have to accept that. It's not our fault. It's not the Father you're speaking of's fault. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not anybody else's fault. A few, back in 451, bishops got into whatever they got into, and they set the world on fire. That's not my fault. Now, that's what it is. I'm not going to go. I've been through theology school, and I wasted all of the time writing papers and all that on the side. And I found it just a drudgery to have to write papers on things like this. But that's what was required. So I went through that process. But here's where we are. And Father Spiro, forgive me, because there is an aspect here that I'm going to get into. And that's an aspect you included too. But you decide to whether part you want to be included. I have a slavery background.
Excuse me?
I have a slavery background.
Slavery, yes, sir.
I have a slavery background. I come from a world where tyranny and oppression and slavery is the order of the day.
Yes.
This was the manner and conduct of society. It was the bedrock of the society. It was the rudiment of the civilization. Go figure. That something as bestial and guttural as oppression and slavery would be the bedrock of a society. Leave it for the discerners to discern the meaning of that. But I'm coming from the experience of it, not the discernment of it. So my perspective is a whole lot different. That I come from that, and I'm going to assume some of my other brothers here come from that as well. We don't have time to be divided on this issue. We don't have time for that. My mindset, and you're right with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church when she came to the American shores in 1959 as a redeeming force to bring us together. That's exactly what the Ethiopian Orthodox Church came to the United States to do, not to purport who is the Orthodox and who is not, and who is this and that. Those things are important. I'm not saying those things are not important. There is an important element with that, and we know that. We can admit that. How it's understood, how it's handled, how it's brought forth, particularly to an oppressed people, is very, 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 very important. It's important how that thing is rolled out to an oppressed people. Okay.
Right.
The Ethiopian Church had their way to figure out how to do it. And they rolled this thing out in 1959, 60 years ago, to an oppressed people, a target group. And they saw the need, particularly the fathers of Ethiopia, under the support after a certain point of Emperor Haile Selassie, that the Africans in the diaspora coming out of slavery in the Caribbean, the United States, they need to have a means to climb out of that oppression, to step into a space of emancipation, not strictly because they're slave masters, as now 400 years later, now the person who gave you slavery is also the one who emancipated you too. So, it's like somebody went in and burned your house and then also saved you from the fire. It's like, well, you're the one that found in the first place, so you can't get credit for both. Okay. Right. You can't get credit for both. Burn my house down, set my house on fire, and then come into my house and save me from the fire. So you can't be my slaver and my emancipator. The Ethiopian fathers thought of it that way. So the Church of Ethiopia came to the Western Hemisphere to say that's not your emancipation. If you want that to be your emancipation, it's up to you. If you think the Christian ideology coming out of the churches that promoted the whole idea of slavery and all of that is a product that you can build a church on, the Black church, as we say, then go ahead. But here's your option. Here's the opportunity to become coalesced, to become united together. There's neither Jamaican or Trinidadian or a Miaphysite or Monophysite, or none of that matters at this stage of the game. At this stage, in this battle, in this vineyard, for this people, we have to create a space where they can come together to be coalesced and be raised up. Sometime along the way in that process, we get to all of the 451 stuff. We'll get to that. And we'll get that all figured out. But for now, we have to bring your baggage, bring everything you got, bring whatever it is, and bring it into this space, and we'll take care of the rest as we go. Don't try to clean up the house before we even build the walls. Don't try to dress the curtains and pick the carpets, and I haven't even installed the roof yet. You follow what I'm saying? Let's not bother with the painting the kitchen color, whatever color the kitchen wall is going to be, when I haven't even installed the basement yet. Let's build the framing. Let's build the roof. Let's put on some windows. Let's just get all that done. You can bring the color swatches in and the furniture samples. You can bring all that. We don't need it right now. We'll get to that. That's my metaphor. We'll get to that. And then when everything is ready and at the right time, we'll bring everybody together and we'll get this 451 thing figured out. Who's who and what's what. We'll figure all of that out. It's just like how even in Eastern Europe, they still operate together with all of these things. And there's differences even with that. And we still operate together. So that's the point I want to make. This forum here and this group that I'm dealing with here, we don't need to waste time on this. And Father and Your Eminence, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But use this forum, we should use this forum to build on what's supposed to bring us together. And this this hood-eyed circumstance and investments is just a disputation of futility, in my opinion, to give my opinion.
Hey, listen, I agree.
Let us take this opportunity it did call me into position. I'm here now. I mean, maybe this would not have happened. Who knows? Maybe it would have been something else. But that we've gotten here, we can let that whole thing go. Let's use this space to pull ourselves together and find a common ground, and let us debate on that, and let people put in comments on that, and whether somebody has a Russian cassock on, which I have a Russian one, I love it. I have an Ethiopian one, I love it. I have a Greek one, I absolutely love it. I have this. People say that my kolb, this is a Greek kolb. I said, no, it's not a Greek. This is an Ethiopian kolb. It's Cushitic. Look like a King Narmer. Look at the kufi he used to wear. This is King Narmer, way before this is what was worn in Africa. So if anything, the Greeks have ours. Maybe put it that way. But then you see that's just conjecture. That's just supplemental. That is not what's actually happening. What's happening is we can share all of these things, and it doesn't really matter. The only thing is, as we spoke earlier, is that when we share these things, we respect them for what they are. If I'm going to wear a Greek Catholic, I'm going to wear it properly. If I'm going to wear the priestly one, I'm going to wear it as a priest. I'm not going to wear a priestly cassock from Greece and I'm a deacon. I'm going to wear a priestly cassock from Greece because I'm a priest. And so if some Greek person sees me as a priest, I'm an Ethiopian priest. So they're right, I am a priest. So I didn't misguide anyone. So if I'm going to wear something that says I'm a monk, then somebody approaches me as a monk, I am a monk. Even if that person sees that I'm not from their tradition, but they see some aspect of me that they can relate to in understanding what a monk is, they'll approach me as a monk, they'll be right. I wouldn't in any way, intentionally or not, misguided them intentionally or not. So the point is, let us share these traditions. Let it not be an issue. We can share it. The only matter is that if we share these traditions, that we share them the way and respect for what they are. And these traditions have a right to exist. Like Father Spiro said, these things are ecclesial. These things are spiritual. These things have deep meaning. And I really got with that because that's exactly right. We do the prayer before we vest. I have to pray before I put my cross on. I have to pray and I kiss it after I put it on. And everything has a spiritual intention, and it is in some aspects it's explaining the truth about who and what we represent. It's explaining the truth. If a stranger sees me on the street, you were talking about the Father Spirit was talking about how the guy dressed. I'll sometimes go to the store here in Hillside, New Jersey, and people look at me, and they'll you see this whole garb, and they especially if I have a cassock on top of it, and this whole flowing thing. And people will stop me, and they'll say, "What is this about? What does this whole thing mean?" And I'll say, I said, do you really want to answer? And then they said, yes. I said, this is the Orthodox Church. And then, what is the Orthodox Church? And I hand them a card. I said, give me a call. And here's my email address. And they email me and we talk. So the point is, we are that peculiar, I think Eminence, you were saying that before. We are that peculiarity is there without being garish. I don't think we have to be garish with mismatching colors to do that. That's my opinion. I think we're peculiar enough just walking out of the house the way you're dressed right now.
Father, I'm sorry, Father. Yes. Can you?
Yeah, I have a question for Father while I'm on. I feel a closeness and a kinship for a number of reasons to the Coptic, Syriac, Ethiopian church, because I'm African American, African of the diaspora, part of the African Orthodox Church. Of course, we're not in communion with these larger groups, but I feel a kinship. And there's certain things that I would do. Say, for instance, like I had 2 of these crosses made, and I wear these sometimes. And I also,
Can you hold it
when I
up
see,
again? Can you hold it up again? Can you
Yeah.
hold it up again?
Put it closer.
Oh, okay, yeah. Those are 2. Yeah, that is okay. Yeah, I see it. That's Aksum cross from Aksum and from Aksum. Those are both from Aksum. Yeah.
okay. So I wear these from time to time, and also what I started doing lately, and I want to ask you directly, if you see me holding this when I'm preaching or teaching, I've done it a couple of times, and I did it. It was a personal reason because I feel a closeness to the Ethiopian church, the Coptic church, because historically these are the people that have been really loving and kind to the African Orthodox Church, and because I consider all of us are people of with black, brown, people of color. So I use this sometimes because I feel a closeness, not as that I'm trying to portray myself as an Ethiopian Orthodox or a Coptic, but because I feel a closeness. Would you consider this offensive for me to do this? And what are your thoughts on that?
No, I have one in my hand right now. No, the answer is no. I will not. I don't feel offense. If I felt offensive about anything going on here, I wouldn't be on the talk. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't feel offense at all. Again, Father, you are a new priest. Congratulations, by the way. Your how you pull it together to serve the church and whatever aspects you need to pull together and represent. You do it, but do it with truthfulness. If you feel like you're being truthful and you're being genuine and you're offering something to those who are observing you on and offline or in the congregation space or wherever you are in public or online or offline, if you feel like you can represent the truth that way and you're not discouraging, you're not disparaging, you're not confusing, you're not misguiding. If you feel confident and comfortable in that kind of circumstance with this cross in your hand, I would say let your judgment guide you. I'm not the one to determine that. Most people know in the Orthodox world that that only place you'll see hand crosses in the hand of the priest all the time. In the church, outside the church, if I'm walking down the street, anywhere I am, I have it in my hand, or sometimes I'll rest it in my pocket if I need to use my hand for something. I never talk without it in my hand. I never walk around with it in my right hand. That's the Ethiopian and the Coptic church. We're the only ones who do that. Ethiopian, Egypt. It used to be the whole Oriental, the whole thing, but there became some different things about, well, it's only the bishops should only go with one with the cross, and then they moved it just for the bishops, and then only the priest could wear, or the bishop could wear this. So some things changed, but it was all the way through. But the Coptic church, the Church of Egypt and the Church of Ethiopia has maintained this like this. So somebody may say to you, Father, somewhere, depending on where you go, that they may assume you're an Ethiopian priest. And then you might say, no, I'm not. I just respect the tradition. You might say that. You know what I'm saying? You don't try to defend it as something that I can do any way I want. You might say, yeah, you're right, but I love this tradition. I'm just like that. Something like that. I don't see any. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
Yes, I am not an American myself. I'm Greek, and a former Greek Orthodox priest. What I cannot easily forget and maybe forgive is how I was kicked out because I wanted to marry after ordination. After ordination. You may ask me, you didn't know what you signed up for. Maybe really I haven't thought about marrying at the time. But I can also not control if you fall in love with a person. I set that aside, but please stay with me here so you understand what I'm talking. Many priests, and I was a priest monk, of course, you understand, being single. Many priests and bishops have extramarital affairs or celibate. Allegedly, they have their affairs. I can forgive all that. I don't mind. Not my business. What is a problem with me is when we fail to look at our own sins. To me, that's the unpardonable sin. We have called this program Disrupting Church, not because we want to challenge anybody, but because we never, many of us never look at our own sins, but we put ourselves on the higher place, on the top of the mountain, and we said, you be like me, or you don't exist, or I don't recognize you. So I understand your input about the vestments and all that, which I agree largely, maybe not in every detail, but largely. Our point is that that tradition is way wider than my Greek Orthodox tradition. The tradition of the church can be in the east, north, south, and we can embrace that. We have the right, a small communion, but at least everybody I know on this panel, because we were people from 4 different jurisdictions here, including you, not that we were one church, we all have ministries and they're alive. There are parishes. I'm a hospital chaplain. And other parishes and parishes on formation and a seminary. We're not idle. So when somebody comes and gives their opinion, everything is fine. But when they pass judgment without looking at our own sins, and we're all guilty of that, but what's the difference? We are people that say, point us our sin, come live, talk to us, and we can discuss it. If their intentions were good, they would have come and say, hey, Bishop Wayne, you're wearing a monastic hood, a monastic headwear. I want to go live, and I want you to explain in front of everybody what you're doing. That's how I see it. But is there a noise on the background somewhere?
I hear a noise, but I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Okay, maybe it's only me. But if I take somebody's picture or post or words behind his back and mock him or gossip, I don't think that the intentions are good. I don't know what's going on in the Ethiopian church. When I was a priest, we had this lady, her name is Lisa Carter, Omaha, Nebraska. She is, I don't know, God bless her, maybe she's not alive anymore. She is or was the patriarch's first cousin, Bartholomew. I did not allow her to take communion for months until she stops gossiping, because that was an assassination. That was a character assassination. I did my job, but I also heard it from my bishop that I shouldn't be strict to her, but be strict to others, especially they who could not afford to pay their tithe or make a pledge. And again, I'm talking about my church, my parish. What I'm trying to say is when we have something, you came here, you express your opinion. We go out and we say it. We call this disrupting church for that reason, that we want to disrupt the status quo. We want to disrupt that elitism, that if you're not with us, you're hell-bound, and you don't even have the right to call yourself Christians, if nothing else. So that is the reason of this program. And just like you, everybody else, and thank you for coming in, everybody is most welcome to join here. But I, as a priest, I could forgive a murderer, but being a gossip is a serial killer. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
and just to caveat that, I agree with you, sir. The ultimate the reality of this was not just to air out grievances for people who were against me. That's not the premise of this show. That's just what happened to happen on a couple of episodes, because these are things that happened and I wanted to discuss them. And hardly ever, like I said, I don't talk about people's names. I don't tell them, I don't call out churches. I don't do all that stuff for the most part, until it gets to the point where, like I said, I was called out. So I was only addressing it in the way that I could address it, because there is no other forum for me, because automatically, according to certain people, I'm considered illegitimate, irrelevant, and non-canonical, whatever the case may be. So having a voice, they have already taken that from me. They have already decided that I'm not worth listening to. So what other recourse is there, except for the fact that they want to talk to me and just, they don't want to hear anything. They only want to lecture and tell me what you're doing wrong and you need to be part of us. That's all I've ever heard. I could get with you if I've heard more than that. If honestly, there have been real, truthful, honest conversations that addressed issues that I had when I asked questions. Instead of being told that I'm being prideful and I'm arrogant and that I don't want truth, just answer the question. But instead of answering the question, I'm called names. I'm told that I don't want the truth and that I'm going to find myself in hell. If that's the only avenue of recourse or of redress or of having an answer, a question answered, then there's not many other options that I have. So I welcome anybody to come on here. Even if they are the one that is doing it, say come live and talk about it here in this forum. And if you can do so without calling me names, if you can do so without involving my loved ones, if you can do so without trying to demean me as a human being and belittle the ministry that I do have, then we can do that. But up until this point, some people have not been able to do that even outside of the forum. So they won't come here because they can't do that. And they have not ever done that when it comes to me. So that's why I was in this particular episode, because we talk about issues of matters of faith. Again, I'm what you talked about, I would love for this show to really become that place where, like you said, the issues at hand. We can talk about how slavery affected Christianity in America and what the African diaspora looks like, what they are in need of. I would love to be able to address those issues, but I have those same African diaspora people telling me I'm not a Christian. I have those same people who I would love to have this conversation with so that way we can share with the world. If we could see the comments that are coming in here, people want this type of information. They want to be shared this type of stuff. We still have 12 viewers, 12. The most was 21 at a point. We still have 12 people. They are watching this because this is necessary. It's needed. But anytime I bring up these type of issues, I am now called names, I'm berated, I am belittled, and you can say, oh, well, it's not really an attack. I understand maybe from I get that. From me, that's not, that type of reaction doesn't improve anything. It doesn't develop relationships. It doesn't help growth. So that's all I'm looking to do is provide people with the answers. There are people on this call right now who don't like or don't understand what tradition is. So it's a good teaching opportunity to discuss our understanding and the point of view of tradition that has been passed down. That's ultimately what this was about. Yes, it was around a certain circumstance, but I wanted to deal with the issue of tradition, how it belongs to the church. It does not belong to one body, one group. Now, to your point of whether or not I should be wearing that particular garment because it is monastic in these other traditions, I can understand that. That's not how this was originally addressed. If that was the first way this was addressed, hey, why, especially coming to me, what are you a celibate or a virgin monk? Is that why you have this headdress on? No. Why do you have it on? Let me tell you why. I was never given that opportunity.
Right.
It was only shared that I'm playing church. That was the initial anything. So I'm sure you can understand my frustration.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can understand why. You know what? Let's talk about this. This is an outlet. This is an opportunity for people to express themselves, including myself, as a bishop in the Lord's church, one who cares for people, one who has given my life and dedicated my heart and my everything to the service of God and his people. This is just an opportunity to share that with people who may not understand, because there are a whole lot of people who I know who watch this show who are intrigued by orthodoxy, but because of the way they've been treated, they won't go near it. You say orthodox, they run away. You say it, they run because of the treatment that they have been given. Now, they may call it love, and I'm just being honest and giving you the truth, but the way people experience this, their experiences are valid. They're real because it happened to them. So they need an opportunity and a place where they can at least know that somebody else has gone through this with me and they're not alone. And maybe they just might take orthodoxy for a second look.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry they thought that these things happened. You know, it's quite sad these things happen like this. I've been treated in certain ways also. And you know, I continued because I knew that this was the right way. You know, I don't mind being treated terribly when I'm going the right way. You know, I'm not going to let anything along that right way get in my way.
Right.
If you don't know you're going the right way, then maybe that might happen. Maybe it'll call you to go the wrong way or another way. But and some of us are weak in that way, and they end up going another way, which is the wrong way. You know, you were going the right way. You just didn't let nobody knock you off the road. Yeah, there's people that bad. A lot of people who mean well, they have good intentions, but it happens. It shouldn't happen like that. We have to remember that this is not new. We even have in the scripture, right? We talk about how there was many complaints about how the people were being treated in the church.
Yes.
The church was forming itself. Many complaints, and this is when even their fathers, the apostles, they were like, you know, we don't have time for this. We have time to make sure all of this thing has been done like it's supposed to, and this person being treated right, and he's getting his fair share, and all of that. So they said, give me 7 men full of the Holy Spirit. They created a canon. They did something to solve the problem. They didn't sit down and argue about it. They didn't debase. They didn't say, you know, why don't we just separate and have a different approach altogether? They just said it was a situation in the church, discussed in the church, by the church, resolved by the church for the purposes of the church. There was never anything distinguished. Like you said, shouldn't be any distinguishing. Well, in the resolve that we have to have within the church, there should be no distinguishing either. So we have to make sure we stay conscious like that. We're gonna have disputes and unfair treatment from people. It's just people. We're weak. You know, so people want to hold it. Look, we go behind their intention. They will hold up the canon. Like Father Spiro was saying, you know, he had a canonical issue with you remarried, right? You know in your own mind that's a canonical issue. Okay,
it is. Yes, it is.
You know it is. We don't have to argue about that, and you know yourself. That is a canonical issue. Long before you were even born, the canon of the church was that once a month always a monk, particularly if you, and then once you're ordained, in order to if you decide to marry, you have to leave the ordination.
Well, I was forced to be a monk. I mean, it wasn't an option.
Okay, let's not. We can talk about that's a discussion. I'm just saying. I'm just looking at it in simple terms. He's a monk. We can dispute the status of how you became and why you became, but he's a monk, and he's a monk. Then he has to get married. Then you have to leave the ordination. That's the canon. That's not your fault. And it's, I don't think it's a judgment on you in that sense. It's the canon. And we have to accept that. We might not like it, but we have to accept the canon. I have a circumstance where I have a man in the church in my parish he's a good friend of mine. He lost his wife some years ago, and he was very in love with her, and he was an archdeacon, meaning he was just before priest, and my wife passed away. And according to the canon, and you have local canon and apostolic canon. Local canon cannot conflict with apostolic canon. Of course, we have local canon specific to Ethiopia, how we run the church, and it's just like the state law versus federal laws, kind of like that. So in the local canon, we have a about this, and it does not conflict with the apostolic canon, and that he's already ordained at the highest level. In order for him to be married, if he wants to marry, he has to become a monk, or he has to give up the deacon. So it's that kind of thing. Now, it breaks my heart. I mean, he's young. He's not, like a man in his 70s or something. That might say, okay, I'll just stay a monk. But this is a man that's in his 40s. He's at the time that happened. He's a young man. So the point is, we might not like these things, but we have to react to them within the crucible. We have to react to the ingredients within the stew. We cannot, step out of, we cannot step out of it. We have to accept that, things are going to happen. There's going to be bad people. It's going to overreact to the behaviors of another person in the church. There's going to be overreaction. And I think there's a lot of overreaction with Eastern Orthodox when it comes to 451 and that whole thing. I think it's a huge amount of problems with overreaction and hammering on the head of people in regard to that issue, which today I have nothing to do with. I have nothing to do with that, and so forth. But the point is that people like us in a circle like this, we can accept what the canon teaches. We might not like it in every aspect, and there should be some economy where economy is allowable, because like Father Spirit was saying, there's an economy for some people, then why not an economy for them?
Right.
Oh, you want an economy for this one because they have money. No economy for this person. So the Orthodox Church teaches economy, so there has to be an economy. So when we come to the U.S., we bring the church here. Let's not trouble them with 451. You saw the apostles argued about this situation with the church coming to the Greek Christians. They argued about this. They have to become Jews, and they have to be and they had this whole conservative war going on. Peter led that whole war. Blah, blah, blah. They're not Jewish. They don't have the circumcision. They don't have the this. They don't have the that. Sort of like what we got now. And they hammered the Greek Christians. Paul was like, absolutely not. And this can't be like this. And they said in council, they said, here's what we're going to do. But these people, we cannot run them through that whole thing. That's our cross to bear. That's our cross to bear. That's the anvil on our neck. They don't come from that.
I agree.
We're bringing the church where it is now. So here's what we're going to do for them who are walking into the thing now, not having to take them through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all the way up to now in circumcision. We're going to give, this is what they have to do. They have to, they set us the rule, right? Abstain from, these kind of foods, strange things, and immorality and sexual immorality. They set the canon, and then take it from here. And then that's what was set in place. So we see where an ultra-conservative side of the church was hammering people. They were probably losing people too because of that. And they said in council and they resolved it. Church, there's a problem within the church, was disputed in the church, resolved within the church for the purpose of the church. Everything done within the church. And that's what we need to do. Same thing here.
I'll let you continue.
No, go ahead.
I have to caveat it with this. I agree with everything 100% with what you're saying, except that there are some parties who have decided that we are not part of a church, so we can't have that conversation. That's the issue that we run into, is because it has been decided for us that we do not belong and in that conversation unless we are a part of them. Unless you join this jurisdiction, unless you join this particular communion, you do not have a say, you do not have a right. So that's the trouble that we're running into. Not that I disagree with anything you said. Everything that you said, 100% I am with. I understand that there are canons and we accept those canons. Like I said, there's economia here and there. The tradition, the jurisdiction, there are some that have some, like you said, locally and other places. These are allowed because of the culture, the circumstance, whatever the case may be. That is, I get all of that. However, there's still canon. But when a person, a group like myself, like Father Sam, like Father Will, when our churches are being denied even the fact of saying that we are validly called Christians, that we have even a right to lay claim to the church that Jesus Christ founded, how do we have those conversations? Because it's impossible to talk with someone who says you don't exist.
Yeah. Well, Bishop, what I think needs to happen is the first order of business when you have that kind of deference, let me just call it that. The first order of business with that is first be certain of who you actually are to yourself.
Indeed.
If you're not certain about that, if you're not completely at a state of resolve, then you're not going to be able to do anything with that kind of deference. Okay? You will never succeed. So first order of business, let's clean up, let's fix house. And you have to be in a state of, you have to have a total resolve. You have to be resolute. And that's being fair to yourself. That has nothing to do with who needs to be fair to you. Be fair to yourself. That's all I'm saying with that. Deference is going to happen one way or the other. Be fair to yourself. Some people ask me, they ask me, well, you're a priest, how could you legitimately, people outside of Orthodoxy, right, from other types of religions, they question me on priesthood, and they say, well, how can you validate the priest? Anybody can be a priest? I say, well, no, it doesn't work like that. And so if you can say you're a priest, how come I can't say I'm a priest? I said, well, you have to have an order. Yeah, well, what order do you have? They ask me. They said, look, it's a good question. I have to be resolute enough about what I am to be able to respect that question and say, that's a good question. That's not an offense, that's an attack. I have to give them the answer. Understood. So I told them, well, I was ordained by Abuna Zacharias, Archbishop of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. He was ordained by 5 bishops in Aksum. Those 5 bishops come from bishops who were ordained bishops, archbishops, at the See of St. Mark in Egypt, which is the apostle St. Mark established. Apostle St. Mark get his authority from Christ. Christ gets his authority, he's God. So you can see that just in that 1 second, that's resolute.
Yes.
If you want to debate it, you can debate it. But I could trace my priesthood all the way to Jesus Christ. From me to my bishop, to his bishops, to their bishops, to St. Mark, to Jesus Christ. So there's no turns in the road. There's no a political upheaval, or maybe a country fell apart, and then the Soviet Union did this, and then the imperialism did that, and then King Henry VIII did this, and a whole lot of other things that occurred. But these circumstances happen in some traditions. In mine, I don't have that. It's just a completely straight line, So the point is, and then some, when somebody asked me, they said, well, how is it that Jesus Christ would even formalize what would be the turning point for Jesus Christ? Yes, he's God, but as regard to priesthood, what's the turning point that the priesthood is acting in real time? I'm like, wow, that's a smart question. You see that smart question? The priesthood is acting in real time.
Yes,
How
sir.
does a person know that, even think of that? But they asked me that too. So I said, okay, good question. You apparently have something is going on in your head. He said, in accordance with the order of Melchizedek. That's it. Melchizedek is the eternal priest. He established, he's the eternal priest. It's not the Levitical priesthood that went into the church. It's the Melchizedek priesthood that came into the church. The church is eternal, I explained. The church is an eternal community. It is before creation. It formalized itself in the body of Christ with the coming of the Messiah. It formalized itself in real time in the body of Christ. But even before the body of Christ coming in the Messiah, the church is eternal.
The church is there.
So the priesthood that had to be over it had to be Melchizedekian. It had to be eternal. So even Christ speaks of him eternally. No one knows when he was born. No one knows who made him a priest, but the priesthood was always accepted. Don't know whether he lived or died, whether he rose up to heaven or not. You know, these kinds of circumstances. So this is so when they got that answer, that person I talked to became a catechumen. Took some time, but that person became a catechumen because they were able to see something that no one could answer for them before, and that's what this person was a Muslim before that.
Indeed.
So yes, it wasn't a major situation. So the point I'm trying to say is, if I'm not resolute, if I'm in 10, 15, 20 pieces, and they're not glued together, or the glue is not, the glue is, people can see the glue even. Sometimes if you can glue together well, but if people can detect the glue and not see it as a homogeneous, resolute aspect, then that might work against you. So the point is, we have to be seamless, is what I'm trying to say in our resolve. We have to be as seamless as possible.
Father, in small communions like ours, we have come up with some resolutions. When it comes to issues of faith and doctrine, we don't compromise. From the ordination of women down to other strange stuff, it's out of order. It's out of question. We don't do things like that. We sustain the ancient tradition. Yet, we have also discussed about the canons. Again, when it comes to doctrine, we don't compromise. When it comes to ethos, morals, we don't compromise. We stay in line with what the church taught everywhere in the world for centuries.
Yes.
However, we do allow, for example, married bishops. We do allow for a priest to marry after ordination, because there are canons that allow that at first. It is part of the church. It is not unheard in the church for a bishop to be married, and it's not unheard in the church for somebody to marry even after ordination. We remember I said before that hypocrisy is not so much how you put it's not if you put the other person down, it's how you put them down. You use the canon as a weapon,
a weaponized tool.
So our disagreement with our friends and brothers there who have issues with that is because they call us on that, pretending that was never part of the church, pretending it's unheard of. It's like you're a heretic. So everything else, if you and I or anybody, Father Sam, writes an essay here on the Trinity or some other issues, basic doctrines of the church, no one would notice a difference. They don't know which jurisdiction we're under, because we almost the same idea in different words. The problem is, how far do we go in the church tradition? Does our tradition stop where the changes are made, or we go behind that, before that, prior to that, when certain things were allowed? Because that is also the same church. It's not a foreign church.
Yeah.
And both are fine. Both are fine. If somebody, is scandalized, or somebody is wants to do something different, it's fine.
Yeah.
But don't accuse your brother. Don't go after him for not really teaching heresy, or something light that could easily, economia, as you said, could have been applied. In my case, in a million people's cases, economia could have been applied. But it seems that the people feel very safe on rules, not of safeguarding the faith, but because it empowers them to attack others they don't like.
Indeed. And I want to share just briefly, because I know I don't want to hold y'all all day, because this is a good conversation, and I love it, and I'm glad that we're having it. And again, my brother, how do you pronounce the name, sir? First,
Amde.
Amde.
Amde, yes.
Okay, Father Amde. I wanted to make sure I got that right. I didn't want to mispronounce it. I pray that we can have more of this type of discussion in dealing with what is necessary, what is needed, how can the churches come together in these things and discuss these things without the finger pointing, so to speak. Can we address an issue without actually trying to make an example out of a person, especially if it's not heresy? It's one thing that you have Arius who's saying that Jesus is not, like, he's not God. This is something different. Okay, that's something major, right? But even Arius was given the decency by other Christians of having a seat at the table. Herod, he was given the decency to say, bring your argument. Whether he was made as he was declared heretic or whatever else, he was given the decency to sit down and to be heard. So I understand what you mean by resolve. When it comes to people who are not Christians, honestly, I find myself getting tired of even talking to them now, because I'm doing so much deflecting from other Christians. I've almost found myself exhausted. I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be out here evangelizing people, but I'm doing more deflecting ad hominem attacks and everything else from other Christians, that by the time I get to somebody who's an atheist, my mind is spent. I am exhausted. And I want to give them this time, and I want to dedicate, because I love them and I desire for them to come to the knowledge of God. But these other people who are supposed to be brothers and sisters have berated me with such a fervor because I don't belong to their particular jurisdiction. That's really the only thing I can.
That's the sign of love. Take it as a sign of love, because the person who loves you the most will be the one that's going to hit you the hardest. Bishop, listen to me. The person who loves you the most is going to hit you the hardest. You know that. So we're hitting you. You're getting hit the hardest because they're really looking. There's a love there, and I really believe that. Of course, I mean, we can debate it, but I really feel that that's a true statement, and it's very relative. Those who don't care that much ain't going to bother too much. But those who care the most is going to always dive in deeper, because they see something that they're gravitating to, that they already feel that they own. They feel they own it already. Let me just say, I'll say this piece, because I know we're running out of time. I know I am anyway, because we made some good points here. Economy we talked about, and we talked about tradition as we had at one point, and then at some point, we had used to be women were ordained deacon, early at certain stages of the church. Now no one ordains deacons anymore. That's not to say deaconess. Deaconess and deacon is not the same.
Right.
A deaconess is a deaconess, and a deacon is a deacon. If you're a deacon, you're a deacon. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. But deaconess has always kept going. But deacons, there used to be women deacon, but they had this tradition kind of got changed. So the point I'm trying to say, what I want to say with that is this: as Orthodox and those who are reaching for orthodoxy, both the same, we have to be able to say to ourselves, a church operates as church. We cannot say that, we should not say, I shouldn't say cannot, but we should not say, we have to all together realize we have to struggle together as church. The good and the bad. We have to struggle together as church. Some days it's too cold, some days it's too hot. We have to struggle together. Some guys, to hold each other's hand. One person's hands might be ice cold, one person's hand might be really hot, but you got to hold on to it anyway, because we're church. Church operates as church. If the church is no longer ordaining or have a tradition of married bishops anymore, then that's the church. If that's largely where the church finds itself in 2020, for example, then that's where we are. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying
that's where we are now. That's where we are now.
That's where we are now. So what I would say is, it's just like, 50 years ago, I didn't have a computer in my car.
Was it a different church, Father, 50 years ago?
No, it was the same. What they're trying to say is, it was the same. The church hasn't changed. It's just what happens is the church finds itself in situations where it's doing what it's doing to defend itself against whatever's happening in the world. The church has to defend its purity. And what has happened, married life and whatever have you, I don't want to get into that in this particular conversation, but the church does what it does to defend itself against impurity, against heresy, against whatever's happening in the world. So the church is at war with protecting it, with protecting its boundaries, and it should. Like any family, you protect your family. You do what you have to do to protect your perimeter. You're not going to come in there and do everything one inside your house. This is not the rule in here. I get that you need me to be this way for you out there, and I'll do my best. But you're not going to bring that in here, So the church is in that mindset. The church is responsible for policing itself. So over time and based on circumstances and whatever's happening at a perimeter, whatever's being brought in, the church has to make adjustments. This is not a change. It's not making the church any different. The church is always going to be the church. But we'll find nuances in tradition and practice that we might find different from today than it was, 50 years ago. But as members of the church and faithful people to the church, we have to defend that. We might not like it. It might hurt me. It might hurt. But we should find ourselves in a position to always defend where the church is in the moment of time that we're in. Not that it's a different church, but those nuances, nevertheless, are the subject of our faith.
I will politely disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I will politely, because I can defend a practice for practical reasons, but I cannot really make it like a totalitarian system.
No, I don't mean totalitarian.
Applying to everybody all the time.
No, everything. Not totalitarian. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think we're on the same page. I agree with that. What I'm trying to say is this: is that economia and the Greek has to work for that purpose.
Exactly. Good.
Right.
That's what.
And
okay.
so
We agree.
Economia has to be granted by the bishop. For example, in the Ethiopian church, deacons get a deacon, and then the deacon gets ordained to archdeacon, for example. He's ordained at the third rank, and he's not married. He can get married.
Yes.
Now, according to if you read the Didache says, of all ordained orders, only the reader may marry. The reader, only at that level. Because why? Yes. He has not received the hand of the bishop. He's been
tonsured.
Right, he's tonsured. Yes, he's tonsured. So that's what it says. So the point I'm trying to make is there is economies and different traditions. In our tradition, in our local tradition, the archdeacon will get married. But in the Greek tradition, they're not going to give you that economy, maybe. Not saying that they shouldn't. But if they don't give that economy, then what are you going to do? What's the next answer? Is the answer, what do we do next?
What we do next? What I did is step out. I had no other option, and affiliated with myself with an Orthodox group that does apply economia.
Okay, so now you so that's the way you resolve that issue. Now,
yes.
The point is, as far as the Greek church is concerned, and those who keep you should still defend the Greek church for having the right to do what she did, even
Yes,
if you didn't like it.
Oh yes, they think I deserted the church. Yes, yes.
You
I
as a Greek, Father, I'm saying you as a Greek Orthodox originally.
Yes, yes.
You have to, even though you stepped away to an economy, a church that does allow that economy, right?
Yes.
And that's legitimate, and that see is legitimate, and that jurisdiction is legitimate, and you went and they have that economy, and you went there. You still have to defend where you come from because that's your resolute, that's your resolve. You still have to be able to say to anyone that I defend what was done to me there. It just didn't work for me.
I don't blame them for following the rules. I blame them because they never asked, what can we do here?
Okay, that's the weakness on it. So without even going into the technical part, just in simple terms, I'm trying to draw a resolute line, a line that is pure, a pure line.
Yes.
I wanted to marry.
Yes.
The church did not have the economy.
So I left.
I went to a canonical jurisdiction that has the economy, and I got married and stayed a priest. That's resolve. I'm not against the Greek church. I don't speak against the Greek church. I defend what they did to me. I might not like it. They could have done things better. That's always going to be the case.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Always defend it. Never. Always make sure, because if you don't defend that, then you upset your own resolve, even in that you moved.
I never claimed that they did not do their job.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
They did their job. They always do their job.
Yes.
That is not the issue.
Okay, so that's good. To make sure we have that clear, particularly among the listeners, because everything we do as Orthodox clergy, particularly, we have to like you see the President of the United States, they call it resolute desk. He has this resolute desk, and if you know the history of that desk, there's two of them in the world. This is a good example. There's two resolute desks on the planet. There's one in the White House and there's one in Buckingham Palace, and they're identical. And there's an interesting story about that between Britain and the U.S. and what these two resolute desks. But the point is, there's a straight line there, and this is the implication. As priests, we are in a sense we are that resolute part where on us it's not a bunch of mess. On the resolute desk in the president's office, he's not allowed to have paper scattered all over the place. When he sits at the resolute desk, it has to have nothing on it but a phone. That's it. And he sits there at the desk on the phone. You'll never see papers on it and books, everything open like he has another desk for that. The resolute desk has to be pristine. Yes. If you ever seen the president sitting at it, there's never anything on it. Maybe a note. That's it. And that's the nature of what we are as representing the church. We're resolute. I don't have a whole bunch of issues. That's what the resolute means. I don't have a bunch of things sitting on top of the circumstance. It is this, I am the bishop or I am the priest, and here is how this whole thing unfolds. This is orthodoxy. And as you know, Father Spiro, ortho means straight, right? It's straight.
Ortho means correct, right, yeah.
It also means straight. And in everything and in every circumstance, while they may have spermatigos logos, where there is this, the spirit has its place in all things. But it's the ortho that keeps us as people in it.
Indeed.
Yes.
Everything has an element of the spirit. The Ethiopian, the Greek fathers teach like that. It's spermatigos logos. There is an essence of the word or the truth in everywhere, and maybe in Kemetic culture, maybe in Hebrew tradition, maybe in Islam, maybe in this and that tradition, religious tradition. There's a little bit of the spirit on. But for us, the ortho is the part that pulls that spirit together and aligns it and pulls it for us in real time so that we can stay straight. So it's not all over the place anymore. So we just can't say and live on our laurels that, on the spermatigos logos mindset. That's true. But the ortho is the thing that is what we have to live on, because that pulls all of it together and keeps it in line. That's what we have to maintain. So we cannot. So everybody that's dealing with us as the church has to be able to interpret that in us and through us and by us, and that's a heavy weight to carry.
That I agree with, and I actually have no agreement with what you said at all. I cannot say but. There is no but to that. And I don't think Father Spiro has a but to that either.
Oh, no, on that, no. But I have to go because I'm working tonight.
Yeah,
Father Sam, anything you have to say?
I think he's having signal issues. He's been going in and out for the last.
All right. Well,
think
Father, thank you so much for this conversation today. I have to go because I need to sleep a bit. But thank you, and I hope we get to see each other again.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And again, I appreciate
right.
allowing me on, and I hope I was able to add some context and giving my perspective. And
All right, thank you.
All of the listeners know whoever's still there, and all and you fathers and bishops.
Oh, trust me, more than 200 people.
Let's work together.
More than 200 people are going to see that. More than maybe 250. Yeah.
If we can have a discussion like this, then we've already got the largest part done. We can sit down and talk like men, and we can work out each other's differences.
That's
okay.
All
well,
I ask for.
All right. Thank you.
God bless you, sir.
See.
Okay, thank you.
That is the essence of why I have this back here. Because this is actually the disruptive nature of what orthodoxy is. Orthodoxy is disruptive to a world that does not want it. Orthodoxy is disruptive to a people who have decided that we can do whatever we want. And by no means do I mean that anybody can do anything, whatever they want. I don't hold to that. I absolutely understand and agree that there are boundaries, there are limitations, there are self-imposed limitations that we place on ourselves, especially as clergy, as members of God's leadership in that sense in the church. It is our responsibility to make sure, like you said, that line. I'm all for the golden thread. There is a thread, there is a line that is pure that we are supposed to hold. I talked about that briefly. There was a line drawn in the sand. It was Christ and who he was protecting and those who were coming against her. Those are the only two sides. It's either you're on the side of Christ or you're on the side that's coming to offend those who Christ came to love. That's it. So for me, the goal in all of this is honestly to what I call air out some issues that need to be discussed, like we discussed today. What you talked about, 100% on point with what we're trying to accomplish here. So I do appreciate you. I thank you for coming, and I'm glad we could have a civilized conversation. That's all I ask anybody. Let's get on here. Let's be civil. Let's address issues. You want to talk about, like you said, validity and whether a church is illicit or not, is valid or not. Those are conversations that we can have and that we should be having. What makes the church what makes a particular church valid? What invalidates the church? These are things that people want to discuss and need to have discussed, because there are some who are out there who believe nobody else is valid but me.
Yeah, but that's not. We're not going there.
I'm saying not right now, but those are conversations that need to be had.
Yes, Bishop. If we can continue along this line, I think we can teach the people, and I think we can have a forum that brings the whole thing together.
I agree.
Again, the side of those who have that thought, I understand where they're coming from. I may not agree with the method.
As do I.
I don't agree with the method, but for us, that we can stay focused on our own resolve, and that's where I find my greatest effort right now is that I build a relationship with you and everybody else that's trying to continue down this righteous path. Because you're on that path. I don't know what this other thing is about not being part of the church, whatever. Anybody who's seeking after Christ in the righteous path on the one true faith is on the right. It's going the right way. I get that maybe there's a canonical issue and all of that. I get that. But if you're going the right way and you're looking for the right faith and you're hungry for that, then you're in the right place. It's where the acquiescence might fall. Canonical or non-canonical agreements might be an issue, but that's something that we need to talk about as issue number 2. But issue number 1 is we're all after the same thing. That's what we all have to realize. And for us out here, African Americans out here in what I call the wilderness, we have to be willing to sit with each other, disregard. I can't afford to be separate from you, Bishop. I can't afford it. I just cannot afford it. I don't have the time, and I don't want to spend the effort on it. I don't have time. I'm glad that I found a brother, an African American brother like myself, who's struggling to find the true faith and is humble in that effort, as I am. And we have our differences canonically. We can nevertheless sit down on that kind of common ground of what we know is our main intention, and then we'll build from there. Because I just can't afford the thing that might separate us. I don't think I need to let that get in the way right now.
No.
If we build a strong enough relationship on what the basic situation is, we'll be strong enough later to deal with that part, and it won't hurt us.
And do it in love.
We learn each other. We know how to talk to each other. We learn how to be brothers and embrace and love each other. And we can warmly enter into the harder part later. We know it's coming. We'll get there. But let's build a community of love, and based on that simple term we already stated, and build and continue on the path forward. Christ set the path. He said it's the path of peace.
That's right.
All of us have to walk that path, and Christ talked about that communion line. It's a communion line. You see people coming up for communion. You see that narrow path. It's not a wide path. It's a narrow. The whole church narrows into this path. To come up and take that's that narrow path. And all of us are partaking of the true faith, the body and blood of the Messiah. This is the ultimate thing. Without the body and blood of Christ, we have nothing.
Indeed.
We have all the canon law in the world. Without the body and blood of Christ, we have nothing.
Absolutely.
Paul talked liturgically. Paul went through the whole liturgy. He says, if I have all of these things and have not love, I have what? Nothing. So all these things have to be hinged in love. Love is the root of all things. The canon law is rooted in love. Everything in regards to the church order and the church structure and all the things in the church to defend the church's legitimacy and its purity, all these things are rooted in love. We don't weaponize them, and we don't become exhaustive in the terms. We become in the intent and in the spirit. That's where we should put all of our efforts and the intention behind what we mean by canonicity. So I think we have I'm glad I had an opportunity to speak in this. I run out of time myself. It's 3:00. But Bishop, thank you for this. And maybe if I get another chance, I'll do this again with you. And I think we'll be talking anyway, one-on-one, because I have some things I think we need to share with each other.
Okay. So, yes, sir. I look forward to that. And I'm telling you, our viewers, we still got quite a few of them on here. They are in 100% agreement. They're like, this is needed. This is major. People are like, wow, this is good. This is where this is supposed to be. This is where this is supposed to be going.
We're on our way.
So we're on our way. God bless you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day to all your viewers as well.
Indeed. All right. God bless you all. I love you. If you have an issue, a comment, concern, you want to join us, by all means, just shoot me a message. Let's talk about it. Get on here live just like he just did. Let's work some stuff out. Let's talk in brotherly love, and let's disrupt this thing that is happening around the world. Let's disrupt this system of division. Let's disrupt this system of separation, and let's bring everything together in the unity of God, in the Son, Jesus Christ. I love you all. I really do. I love you. God bless you. I will see you in the next episode. And that's it for me. Have a wonderful day.